Welcome, everyone. This is Our Travel Experiences. I'm your host, Kyle Rasmussen. And today I have with me returning 10 episodes ago already. I have Candice here today. Candice, how are you?
So good. How are you?
Doing well. Excited. It's 2023 now. And, 2022 was a great year of travel, but I'm excited to see what this year has in store for travel. And yeah, just excited to talk about what you've been up to lately.
Yeah, gosh, so much has happened since we talked last.
I know we were just talking about before we jumped on here. It's already been basically 3 months since we last talked, and I think there's been a lot of travel for both of us in that time.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, we've been on the run.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I definitely want to hear about your most recent trip because it looked super interesting and fun from what I saw on Instagram. But first, just kind of give me a recap. How was the last few months in 2022 for you?
Wow, the last few months, 2022. Yeah, it was wild. It was a lot of so most of 2022 is a lot of like backyard travel and stuff and kind of getting reacquainted with my hometown because it's been so long. And
Mhm.
that was really fun to explore that. And then I ended up on like a massive road trip um, that ended up, it was supposed to be all over the US, ended up being a little bit all over the US, but mostly on the West Coast, like California. And then ended up going to India for like 6 weeks. And
Wow.
I just got back, what, 2 days ago?
Yeah. And somehow you've already recovered, which is annoying.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It is annoying.
Uh, I'm not. I'm so bad with jet lag and being able to sleep on planes. It's always been a struggle for me, and I've tried a lot of different ways to combat it, but nothing's worked well for me. So I'm envious of you.
I grew up flying like I would fly like 6 times a year since the age of 8 years old. And it's like you get used to like sleeping on planes at that point.
Yeah. Usually I just am reading and watching movies and do my best not to go crazy.
Mhm. I have a friend who does like the white noise thing to fall asleep, and her white noise is the sound of an airplane. And so she's
Oh,
trained
nice.
herself to be able to sleep on planes by like every night she listens to this airplane white noise sound, and it sounds absolutely ridiculous, but it totally works. And now she can sleep on planes.
Yeah, that's a great idea. It's like a workout for you, basically training
Yeah,
yourself.
exactly.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so let's jump into it. Tell me about India. You were there for 6 weeks, right?
Yeah, and this is my second time in India. The last time I was there in 2018, and I spent a month at a yogashala in like southern India and Kerala, the state of Kerala. And then I slowly worked my way up the west coast to Mumbai over the course of like around 2 weeks or so. Um,
Hmm.
and then this time I did it kind of opposite, and then I started in the north and I was there for about almost 3 weeks, and I did 2 weeks for like a guided trip, which is interesting because I've never done a guided trip before. So this is the first.
Oh,
Um,
really? Wow.
Very different, but because like I've been a tour guide for 15 years, and then to finally go on like a guided trip like that, I'm like, oh shoot, so different. Uh,
Yeah.
and then I spent the last 3 weeks bouncing around the south, going through Kerala again. One of my travel mates that I was with, she really wanted to see the south, and so that was so we went back, and I'm glad that I did. Like normally I don't like to return. Um, I I like to go back to the same place, but usually I kind of avoid it. But
Yeah.
so it was just what I needed. Like going back felt like going home, you know? So it was nice.
How long were you there in 2018? You said a few weeks?
I was there for 6 weeks. Yeah.
6 weeks. Okay.
Yeah. So
And
same
then,
same length.
okay, cool.
Mhm.
And what was the reasoning for going there? Just 'cause?
When I went last time, I went to get, so I've been a yoga teacher for since I was like 19 years old. But I got certified in the States, and it's very different, like certification in the States versus in India. And so I just
Mhm.
wanted to go and like reconnect with yoga for a month. Um, I haven't honestly taught since I graduated college. So like when I was 22 and I haven't taught yoga since. I don't feel like it's mine to teach anymore. So I just wanted to go back and like reconnect with yoga, and that's why I went in 2018.
Oh, very cool.
Hmm.
And then this time, was it the same thing?
No, it was so Mia, my friend at Mia on the Map, she won an Instagram giveaway for a
Oh,
trip
wow.
with Intrepid Tours, right? Intrepid Travel.
Okay.
Um, and so I was the friend that she chose to go with her. And so
Oh, nice.
originally we were trying to go for Iran, but of course, like, can't really travel there right now.
Yeah.
So India was the next one that she wanted to go to. And she really wanted to do the South, but I talked her into going to the North instead. Like, the North is harder to travel by yourself. And
Mm.
so that's why I pushed us in the guided tour in the North, and then we all went to the South together, and that was way easy and pretty cake.
Yeah. Why is the North harder to travel by yourself in?
The North is harsher for a lot of reasons. There's a little bit more harassment, if I'm super blunt.
Mhm.
Especially as like women travelers, the two of us, like it would be it it even as a guided tour, like our guide was amazing and it was super helpful, and she like we were treated much differently just from her presence, right? And
Yeah.
then even a couple times Mia and I went on our own to like go do something, like early morning we wanted to like go grab coffee, so we walked through a city to go get coffee, and just like the amount of harassment that we got in that like short period of time was enough to like convince Mia that like a guided trip in the North was 100% worth it. And then when we
Mhm.
got to the South, seeing how much gentler everything was, it was calm. We had little to no harassment at all. Um, it was a breath of fresh air after being kind of on high alert for 3 weeks. Um,
Yeah.
and part of that too is like in the North, the caste system is still very much in play. And education is harder to get. It's significantly like the wealth distribution and gap is quite significant, like more so than in the South, whereas the South is really well educated. It's GDP, like the GDP for the South is a minimum 3 grand, $3,000 more than the people of the North. And so like
Wow.
3,000 US dollars a year is a significant amount. And so then you see that it's kind of a deep rooted issue, and it like the harassment and everything else, like it's all
Mhm.
interconnected. So yeah.
Huh, that's interesting.
Mhm.
So, what was it like? You said that was your first guided trip. What were some of the things that you liked and disliked about that?
Oh my goodness, I loved it. So I have mixed feelings, obviously. As a tour guide, it's super nice to like let somebody else like take over, and like I didn't have to think about much of anything,
Mhm.
which is never the way I travel. So it was really nice just to like
Yeah.
coast. Um, but the thing I loved the most about it was our group. Like all of the people in our group just bonded so well. Like
Mhm.
it was amazing how well we all connected and got together. And like normally I don't know, as a guide, and I talked to our guide during this whole thing too and was like, is this normal? Because I don't usually connect this well with a group. And she's like, I've never connected this well with a group. She like,
Oh, wow.
and I usually don't give out my phone number or anything like that with groups, and I keep it pretty professional. I'm like, if you need, you can contact my work phone number, but like you're not getting access to my personal Instagram, my social media, like nothing. So like once the tour's done, like I'm done with you, that kind of a thing.
Yeah.
It's very rare that I like connect enough with a person that I'm like, yeah, here's my information, And it's the same for her, our guide in India. And she's like, yeah, I never connect this well. So we're all like good friends after. We've all like been talking outside of the tour, and like we all have each other's numbers, and we've all yeah, it's just been like I think that was the biggest the thing I loved the most, I guess, about the entire trip was the people. Um, I can see, so I have mixed feelings about doing another trip because that was the best part about the trip in general. And I
Mhm.
know that like you don't always get blessed with such a beautiful group like that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So that could be difficult for like future things. The one
Yeah, it was
thing I
almost
was,
sounds like it was almost too good. You know,
yeah, it ruined other tours for me, you know?
yeah.
Um, I will say though, like with these kinds of trips too, like it's so jam packed. Like that's the only
Mhm.
like bummer part about it all. Like you are moving nonstop. Like it is 2 weeks of just like go, 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 go. Hopefully get some sleep. Go, 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 go. And like it was aggressively paced. Like it was very, very quick. I got strep throat 3 days, 4 days into the trip too,
Oh
and so like
no.
I was like struggling energetically to like keep up and everything and to do all of the things. And normally I'm really engaged. And this trip, there was definitely a couple days when I couldn't get the energy to like be communicative and talk with everybody and like be fun and silly. I was like, I'm just present to see the things, you
Yeah.
know? um, so that was, I think that pace and getting sick was the only bummer part about the entire trip.
Yeah, dang, that's tough. I feel like especially in India, uh, I'm guessing it was probably like a little bit humid and muggy and hot. It's probably not a good place to be sick in.
Yeah. And like the weather was changing too when we were there. So like, and we were going to so many different locations, like in Delhi. It all started in Delhi. Like the pollution was super intense. It was hot. It was muggy. And then we immediately go to the Thar Desert in Jaisalmer, and it's like desert. So it's warm, but it's also like dry, and we also got cold in the evenings. And so it was just like we went through so many different climates during that trip that our bodies never fully adjusted. And even now, like,
Mhm.
shoot, my trip back from India to Washington was such a mess because I went from like 87 degrees in the south to 55 in Delhi for like a day. And then I went to Seoul for a long layover and it was 20 degrees and I was like outside the whole time. And then I get to Washington and it's what, like 50 something or something, like 44 right
Yeah.
now. And so like within 3 days, I went through so many climates.
The
You know,
body's going, what the heck is going on?
exactly. Yeah. And like the whole trip was that way, like as far as India goes.
That's funny. That's just a normal part of travel though, unfortunately. You're gonna get sick. A lot of people get sick in some way on a trip or just aren't feeling 100%, and then you're going and going and going, and it's tough.
Yeah. 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 I will say I'm very lucky. I did not have any digestive issues at all on this trip. And like every traveler has a good poo story, you know, and like
Oh yeah.
especially like belly belly is a real thing. And like for me to get through that trip with no issues like that, like, woof, I feel like I dodged a bullet, you know?
Yeah, you're like a superhero basically.
I get like a gold star for this travel trip.
Yeah, honestly. Um, it's kind of funny, I we talked when I was on my way down to Morocco, and it was kind of the same thing. Like we really bonded well as a group, and actually a bunch of us are going to be going on another trip coming up here pretty soon, because we liked each other so much. But
I love that.
we all got sick. We all had some digestive issues, and I think that was part of the reason why we got along so well because we were all in the same boat. But it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, nothing brings you together like sharing poo stories and like being in
Yeah,
the same sick boat.
yeah. Seeing who has any Imodium left.
Oh, yeah. Does anybody have electrolyte tabs? Where are we at? Where do
Yeah,
we be?
that's funny. Okay, so I gotta ask. I mean, your latest post of the Taj Mahal. What was
Yeah.
it like seeing that?
Oh, it was overwhelming, if I'm fully honest. The Taj is absolutely gorgeous. It's stunning. The whole layout is amazing. Like there's I could just spend days just photographing the Taj and like learning about it. And it's so detailed and intricate and everything. And the way that the king at the time like treated the employees who built the Taj too is amazing. And like the history behind it, the history that came after it, as far as like him being imprisoned by his son and not being able to visit it until he died. Like it's such a wild story. Um, it's, it's a stunning like place. And that in itself like gives it this beautiful depth. The overwhelming part was the amount of people that were there. And like our group dressed in saris, like we were dressed by a local lady in saris before we went. And already in the north, we're already like grabbed all the time and asked like, take photos with us, like blonde, white person, take photos. And it's like, it's already like a difficult, I don't know if you saw that post that I wrote, it was a couple weeks ago about that. But it's a difficult double-edged sword. And being at the Taj in saris and being a white person, like we were just like, it was like wolves on prey. Like it was so difficult to like move. Like you couldn't walk more than 5 feet without somebody coming up and be like, take my photo, like, and so we had to just deny everybody and say no, like we're not taking photos, because otherwise we would never move. Because we did take one photo with one person because we accidentally like interrupted their photo and it was kind of rude of us, and so we're like, oh shoot, sorry, we didn't notice, our bad, we'll take a photo with you since you want to make up for our rudeness, right? And then as soon as we did that, we were surrounded by over 50 people asking us for the photos, and like it was too much. And so that was really tough. And then people like taking sneaky selfies and stuff. And my rule of thumb generally is like, if it's not going to interrupt my time too much or impact like what I'm currently doing, and then I'm okay with photos, but only if it's women or children. I won't take photos with men, just because I don't know their intentions generally, and like I don't end up in some weird spank bank. And so that was like a very difficult situation at the Taj, was like just the hounding of photos and not being able to like move because we were just surrounded quite often. And so that was really difficult. And by the end of it, you're just like emotionally spent at that point from being kind of hounded for hours. And like patience too, after a certain point, like I just stopped even like saying no. I would just shake my head and like wave my hand like no, 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 and just like turn the other way, because it's exhausting.
Jeez.
Yeah. That was probably the hardest thing about the Taj. That's like the only bummer bit, I would say. Well, I will say too, the Taj is tinted a little bit now. There's quite a lot of pollution in Agra and that whole state. There's a lot of like tanneries and clothing manufacturers and whatnot. So like the tanneries emit this like kind of yellow fumes into the air. And so the Taj is actually slowly becoming a little bit tinted from the pollution from the tanneries in the area. And so that was kind of a bummer to see it and be like, oof, yeah, getting a little, you know.
Yeah, I was actually in your photo. I don't know if you edited it or at all, but I was like, wow, it's actually really clear. Because I've seen, that it's actually covered in a lot of pollution usually.
Yeah, we got lucky. It had rained like the night before.
Oh, nice.
So we did get super, super lucky with the pollution. Because the next day, I'll show photos like later this week of like what happened the next day, and like you can't see anything. Like there's just so much pollution.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy. So how long did it end up taking you to go through and see the Taj Mahal and all that?
We were there for, I want to say, like 3 hours total, if not a little bit less. And the Taj is actually like not giant. Like it's relatively small, and like the areas that you can actually go into is pretty small, and they like there's so many people going through that it's like a big line that you're just kind of moving through like cattle a little bit.
Hmm.
And so it's not large, but like the gardens around it are really beautiful, and like wandering through there and getting cool new views of the Taj is really pretty. Um, so it's, I mean, I could spend all day there, but it's because I could like take photos and videos all day.
Yeah.
Um, but it's not a large, it's not as large as everybody like thinks, or you'd expect it to be, you know?
Hmm. Yeah. So what, give me a little background, or give the listeners a little background of why that was built.
So it was
I
built
think
at
it's one
the,
that's, sorry, I was just gonna say, I think it's one of those things that's like mysterious that we've all kind of heard about, but really don't know much about.
yeah. Oh, the story is so beautiful and it's so romantic. So, um, King, Emperor, I want to say it's Emperor is what they call him. Um, but there's an emperor, and he had a whole bunch of like, many, many wives. Polygamy was like a really big thing at that time, like in the medieval days. I forget what year it was. Man, I should really know this. I was like just writing about it. But anyway, at the time that the Taj was built, um, the king went through, he like dressed up as a woman, right? And he went to the women's market, which is a part of the palace that's like separated out, and like it's a daily market where only women can go, and he really wanted to go into it. And so he dressed as a woman, went through this market, ended up falling in love with this beautiful woman that was in the market, and he of course like found her, married her, um and she was like not royalty, and so she was like a commoner, and so it was a big deal that this happened, like the fact that he dressed as a woman to sneak in and like see what the women's market was about, fall in love with a commoner, and then like marry her and make her a queen. And then he still had concubines and other wives, but she was like the top queen, right?
Hmm.
And so they had this like beautiful love, and um she really wanted to like have some sort of a token or something to show his love for her. And so she wanted like the grandest tomb that has ever existed. And he was like, "Yep, totally. I will do it." And like it's funny because in India they always tease that like a happy marriage is just a happy wife. And so there's this all of these jokes, and it's kind
Yeah.
of true. Like you see it a little bit like um the women are definitely like rule a lot of things, which is fun. And then, so he built this like beautiful, beautiful tomb for her. I want to say she passed and then it started being built. I don't think she saw it before. And then, my favorite part of like the whole story too is that he treated all of the employees that built the Taj really well. Like he paid them incredibly well. And then after it was built, it was so grand and so beautiful. And it was like the place for tons of like royal events and everything. It was like a common place to like go and experience court and whatnot. And um, the king or the emperor really didn't want anything to be built so grand. And so the rumor is that he cut off the hands of all of the employees so they could never build anything as good as that, right? And
Hmm.
in a sense he did, but not in the gruesome like cut your hands off kind of a way. Instead he paid them pensions for their entire life that were like so great that they never had a need to work again. So for every single person, which was like hundreds of thousands of people that worked on the Taj, and he just paid them all incredibly well, so they never had to work again.
Huh, that's amazing. I mean, that's super rare,
Yeah.
especially back then when it would have been built.
Hmm. And then he
Yeah,
was also like banned from ever marrying again because his wife didn't want him to. So once she died, then like he was never allowed to marry again. And then he was imprisoned for like 20 years outside, like in the normal palace, pretty far away from the Taj. So he could always see it, but he could never visit it. And then it wasn't until he died that he like went to the Taj and was actually buried there. And it's the only like everything in the Taj is incredibly symmetrical, right?
hmm.
Except him. His presence there and his tomb makes it the one thing that does not fit and is not symmetrical within the Taj.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. There's so much to it too. Like, did not say it all super well, but
No, no, that's a good overview for sure. Maybe I'll get people interested to go see it. I know I really want to get there to see it one of these days.
it's
But
incredible.
I've I've always heard that it's kind of out of the way. Is it hard to get to?
A little bit, yeah, because like Agra really only has the Taj, and then of course like the Amber Fort or the Red Fort, which is where the king would have lived and where he was imprisoned and whatnot, which is another incredible, beautiful place that has really rich history and is definitely worth visiting. Um, but as far as like Agra goes, there's not much around there, so it is a bit of a trek to get out there. Like the only reason you're going there is for the Taj.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Well, that's very cool. I mean, I love that story. I've heard it uh, over the years in some form.
Hmm.
But it's just I think it's a really cool story and just a really unique place in the world for sure.
Yeah.
So I'm very jealous that you got to see it.
You'll get there soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
Um, anyways, so what other big travels have you had this year? Or anything else in regards to India that you want to share?
Ooh, yeah. Let's see. So the North was really beautiful as far as like the medieval architecture because there was such a huge trading hub during the Middle Ages. And so you could see like beautiful
Mhm.
architecture and history and culture, and you can see more of like how that history is still prevalent in today's culture and like their traditions and whatnot. And so like the North, and it's funny. So the North, everybody says northern India and it's like Delhi, Rajasthan, everything else. But then there's like a further north, right? Which is like the Himalayas, like the Kashmiri area and everything. And so when I say north, I'm saying like not quite north, but like also north.
Yeah.
Like the northern half, but not north. And so that's kind of a funny thing. Like you'll hear all over India, people are like, oh, in the north. And then like, oh, but not like north. Um, and then the South too, like the South is just so beautiful. And it's, if you're more into like nature and that vibe, like chilling on the beach or kayaking through mangroves or anything more like nature driven, yoga driven, I would say like that's the South is a beautiful spot for that. It's a little bit more touristy. Um, like the tourist scene in the South is pretty well established and built up. But it's easy to get off the beaten path like very easily, and it's navigating, taking the bus system, taking the trains, it's all very easy, especially in the South. In the North, the bus system is a little bit harder. I would say it was more difficult for me. The metro in Delhi was easy, trains are always easy. I didn't get as far as like Rishikesh, but next time, next trip will be Rishikesh, Kashmir, all that area, like Ladakh and whatnot. um,
Okay.
but yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at the map right now, trying to see where these places are at. I don't know India super well, so looking
It's,
here.
I think it could take seven, you could travel India for 7 lifetimes and still not see everything or understand everything because it's so culturally diverse
Hmm.
that it's, yeah, you can travel 10 minutes in any direction and it's like a whole different world. Like every city, every region, it's all so different. Some of my good family friends are from Bangalore and they were over last night and we were talking about it. And it's funny because like their ideas of India, they're from India, but have been living in the States for the last 20 years. And hearing their preconceptions of India and like what I experienced was so different. And they've never been to the North. It's like a lot of the places that I've been in India, they've never been. Um, and so it's interesting, like, there's so many people with different ideas and different, it's just also different, like, such a diverse place.
Yeah, yeah. It's my understanding, and I could be totally wrong on this, but way back when, each of the states were their own kingdoms essentially,
Mm-hmm.
and so they were all separated for a long time until it became India as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's correct or not, but that's what I remember from reading.
Yeah, I think that over time that like slowly kind of gathered together and like colonialization with the British
Hmm.
and the Portuguese and all of that like stimulated it further. And I think that's too like why we're having there's some border issues and whatnot, and like especially in the north, it's that like colonial hangover in some ways.
Yeah,
You know, um, yeah, which is
yeah.
interesting.
It's not to touch too much on that, but
Yeah.
kind of interesting that all of these, the UK especially, just drew a line on a map and said that's the border for a lot of places around the world.
Yeah, just arbitrary lines everywhere.
Yeah. And now there's a lot of disputes around the world over that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Um, yeah, wow. What was the best food that you had while you were
Oh
there?
my goodness. Oh, so good. That's my favorite part. Like, that's been probably like, do you ever experience this when you get back to the States, that like reverse culture shock of coming
Oh,
home?
100%. That was the worst part of traveling for me.
It's the worst. Oh man, I always dread coming home because of
Uh-huh.
that. Like, the last couple of days of being home, I'm like, I don't even want to eat because everything just like doesn't taste as good. Like, it's not as flavorful, it's not as healthy. Everything in the States is just like, even vegetables, like, it's just not as flavorful, you know?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm having a little bit of that. The best food I ate in India, though, like butter chicken in the north is such a staple. It's a delight. It's a lot richer curries in the north, which are beautiful, very dense. Like it was a little bit tough on my stomach at times just because I don't eat that heavy normally.
Hmm.
Um, and then in the south, it's like so many veggies. It's much spicier. It's less curries, more like there's still curries, obviously, but it's like more vegetable based blends, like roasted vegetables or like barbecue chicken and like tandoori chicken. That kind of thing is very, very, very common. And like shawarma is surprisingly like a big thing there. Um,
Really?
yeah, surprisingly. Honestly, like the barbecued chicken is like the biggest thing in the South too, from what I've seen. Like I ended up making friends with a whole bunch of local people, and like traveling around with them for a while and getting to eat at all of their favorite spots. So it's less like soupy curries and more of like saucy vegetables. If that like makes any sense.
Those are good descriptions. uh, yeah, I don't know. That's one of the things I love about traveling is just trying all the different foods and seeing how it changes from place to place. Even within, like you said, from the north to the south, it was a different type of food that they were eating.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know. That's always a fun part of traveling to get to know what each culture is like and what kind of food that they eat.
Yeah, and even from like city to city, it varies quite a lot too, because like um, which cities have a strong fishing presence in the
Mm.
South is going to have a lot more seafood, right? And like it's on the coast, so most places have a seafood presence, but like if there's not a strong fishing community there, then it's not going to be that much. I guess
Yeah.
for lack of a better word, or like in Delhi too. Delhi's such a modern city, and it's such a melting pot that you can find just about everything there. And I found it interesting. Um, how many like Momo shops there were. Like what all the like there were lots of like very Western style like rooftop bars and things like that.
Huh.
Yeah. So it's interesting. Like India's a
Did
fun
you?
place.
Yeah, yeah. Did you find a difference in terms of Western influence as you went to different parts of the country?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Um I would say through like Rajasthan it's got minimal Western influence. That's probably the least Western of all the places I went to. Delhi had a significant Western influence that I saw towards the end of my trip. I stayed with a friend for the last couple days and they showed me around, and it was there was definitely like a bigger Western influence in those neighborhoods that they showed me,
Hmm.
like a little bit more posh and whatnot. And then in the South too, the South so it's so different from 2018 to now because COVID and the pandemic, it just changed everything. Um, it's busier. There's less Western tourists in the South, but it's like still, it's a lot of like Indian tourists everywhere, right?
Hmm.
And so you still have like the Western influence, especially in kind of the bigger tourist towns like Varkala, Kovalam, those types of places. Like all of the restaurants on the cliff will have like a strong Western menu, right?
Hmm.
Um, and so those places, they have quite a Western influence. And you can tell which restaurants are actually owned by a Westerner versus a local person. Like there's a difference and it's pretty easy to spot. Um,
How do you spot that?
you'll see like, especially in like Varkala, like there's a bougie vibe for sure. Like it'll be like very clean lines, kind of minimalist, like exposed like live edge wood tables and la la la, like that kind of thing. Like that's definitely like a Western influence for sure. Whereas like, and it's funny because India is not a minimalist place, right?
Hmm.
Like if you think about minimalism, you've got like very few items, very clean lines. There's not a large range of colors or anything. Um, and India is not that way. India is colorful, it is crowded, it is packed. It's like all of the things. It's such a melting pot. There's so many different things going on. It's culturally diverse. India is like a vibrant bucket of fireworks, right? Where it's just like so fun and like everything. So
I
when you
like
see,
that description.
yeah. And so like whenever you see like a Western restaurant when it's like very minimal, like if there's a Buddha head, like a statue of a Buddha head, like you know for sure that's a Western place because like that is like a huge faux pas to like have a Buddha head. Like it's incredibly disrespectful. Um, and so if you see like a restaurant that has, you know, X, Y, and Z, um, you'll know like, oh yeah, this is, and it's also prices too. Prices are different in Western restaurants versus, you know, um, the local owned local places.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Very interesting.
Mhm.
Um, so would you go back?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I already want to go back. Like I was dreading leaving. At one point too, I was like, because I got my like corporate job that also like I kind of do on the side right now. Like it's they like the second day of the last day of the trip, they called me and they're like, sorry, you're laid off. And I was like, do I go home?
Oh gosh,
And so part of me was like, yeah, do I stay?
it's
We'll
a
see.
sign.
Yeah, right. But I already bought my ticket home and whatnot, and I was like, shoot, I should really just like go home, get my van. I was missing my van a ton, so I was ready to come home, but I still was like, man, I want to stay. I'm already planning my next trip though, um, to India.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. Um, yeah, with that, I know you mentioned reverse culture shock earlier. What have you found to work to kind of combat that?
Ooh. Um, honestly, introspection. I've had like the first couple days coming back, it's so much processing and like traveling in itself and like the flights home are exhausting. And so I find that
Hmm.
if I can like sleep, process, really think about the trip, like what did I learn about myself? What did I learn about the place? What things do I want to like really hold on to and like carry through moving forward? And that kind of helps ground me a little bit while going through this whole like reverse culture shock.
Yeah.
Um, I think another thing that, at least for me, it's really tough coming back to the States as like a solo female traveler because everybody immediately wants to ask about like safety and all of these other
Yeah.
issues. And it's so negative, and it's like um, having those conversations is really draining to me because it's defending not only myself and my abilities to travel through an area, but it's also defending the area from people's like lack of awareness and
Hmm.
a little bit of that like uh I don't know what the word would be for it, but like that idea that like the US is so great and
Yeah.
everywhere else is dangerous, whatever that like thing is, that like terrible beast in the corner, you know, like
Hmm.
combating that in like a tactful way is so exhausting when all I want to do is just like talk about these lovely experiences in a country and everybody else seems to want to talk about these negative things. It's a lot of like
Yeah.
redirection and being rooted in like a really positive place personally so that I can have those difficult conversations. And have the energy to redirect instead of just getting frustrated and be like, I'm done with this conversation. Time for a nap.
Yeah.
Bye. You know?
Uh, no, it's funny you say that. I mean, I experienced the same things. I think it's easy to tell who hasn't traveled or who hasn't traveled to the place that you just went to,
Yeah.
um, by the way that they ask the questions or what questions they ask you about the place. Um, I know for me, like I have a trip planned. Uh, I'm not going to say exactly where right now
Mhm.
until after the trip, but it is a place that has a lot of negative connotations around it,
Mhm.
and that's the only thing that I've gotten from anyone that I've told is, "Why are you going there? Like that's a dangerous place. You shouldn't go there." Blah blah blah.
Mhm.
And then the people that have been there, like, "Oh my gosh, it's so awesome! It's so cool! Like there's so many great things to see and do. The people are friendly. Blah blah blah." And that's just the case in so many places. I mean, we have the perception, we get the little bit that we get on the news and it's usually negative, but until you go and experience, I mean, I've met some of the nicest people in some of the supposedly most dangerous places in the world.
Right.
Um, and it's awesome. I mean, I think you have to go there and experience it for yourself because it's not how we necessarily perceive it here in the US.
Yeah. I think that the US is funny because it's everybody thinks that it's so dangerous outside. But like I don't know about you, but I feel a billion times safer once I leave the US. Like I feel so much better outside of the US. It's yeah, it's just feels so safe.
Yeah, honestly, I mean, there are, granted, there's some places where I don't necessarily feel super comfortable in by myself, but around the world. But there's a lot of places in the U.S. that I think are a lot more dangerous than other places around the world.
Yeah. And I think too, when you're traveling, like you're on alert to some extent and like you're really aware
Hmm.
of your surroundings and whatnot. And so I think that sometimes people kind of discount that. And like you don't hear on the news about all of the wonderful people either. Like the world is not as harsh as we'd all like to think. Like the news and
Yeah.
everything else like paints it in this like very dark light, but the world is like so wonderful and people are like generally great and like really good humans in the world. And I think that one of the biggest things that I get every time I travel is like just more love for humanity, and
Mhm.
it like revives my sense like, oh yes, the world is a good place. Like people are really great. They're like you can trust a little bit more. You don't have to be such like a hard shell. Like in the States, it does feel like you kind of got to put on that like external shield. Whereas like yeah, you do a little bit when you're traveling too, but the world is generally like a lovely place, you know?
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, one of the things, one of the most important things I've learned, I think, from traveling the world is that everyone's just trying to live their lives and be happy, and we all get a short amount of time on this earth, and everyone's just trying to get a little slice of happiness in the short time they have. Most people don't really care. They don't even care about you. They're living their lives. There are some bad apples, but the vast majority are just there enjoying life the best they can.
Yeah, exactly. And even some of the like quote unquote bad apples too, it's like situational, like petty theft and
Mhm.
like scams and everything, it's like, okay, we got to like recognize the situations that are, pushing someone towards that, it's more
Yeah.
than just, they're a bad person or something. It's this, everything's interconnected systemic issue too. Uh, the world is so great. People are so great.
Yeah. I love it. So many great messages. So Candice, what do you have any big travels planned for this year?
Yeah, I have so I'm gonna be in the van for the next like 3 months or so. And then I'm starting that secret project again. It's coming up, so that's exciting. I can't say
Yes.
anything else besides that. But that it's gonna be at least a solid 6 months of travel for me, mostly in the US, which will be fun. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a little bit since I've been able to, you know, explore around the US and road trip and such. So, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see all the van life pictures.
Yes. It's so fun. I can't wait. I'm like, I pick up the van on Saturday and I'm so antsy. I'm ready.
That's awesome. Well, I'm definitely looking forward to those pictures. But um, anything else that you want to share? I
No,
can't
I'm
believe
feeling
it's
good
been
about it.
almost an hour.
This went so fast. I guess my only thing would be like, go visit India. Like, everybody
Yeah.
should go. It's so fun. Just definitely have like a flexible mind when you're going. It is not a Western country, so don't go with that idea.
Yeah. I think that, at least from what I've seen and like people that are looking at India, it's a very different place from the US. Like you said, we're very, much more like straight lines and minimalist, not so much colors, and India's the exact opposite. And I
Mhm.
think that's just hard for a lot of people to kind of grasp and feel comfortable with.
Yeah, yeah, it's a totally different culture and place in every single sense of the word, and like it is a difficult place to travel, like if you have that Western mind, but like if you can just be flexible and dive into it and let things just fall in the way that they fall, it'll be one of the most beautiful countries you visit. Um, it has a way of like picking people up and like providing exactly what you need at any given time. It's a pretty magical place for sure.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. I definitely want to go there, especially after this conversation. I gotta make that a priority to get there.
Yeah, let me know. I'll give you all my all my contacts and whatnot.
Yes, yes, I love that. I think that's another fun part of travel is just the connections you make, and the resources that you can find around the world too.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Candice, I appreciate the time. I appreciate you sharing your travels, and like I said, we'll have to do another part to this after that secret project is done too.
Yeah, definitely. It'd be fun.
I love it. Well, enjoy 2023, and I'm looking forward to seeing your travels this year.
Totally. I can't wait to see yours too. Thank you.
All right, have a good one.
Bye.
Bye. Hey everybody, Kyle here. If you enjoyed today's show and want more, you can always check out every episode on Spotify, Anchor, YouTube, and now Amazon Music as well. Just search for Our Travel Experiences on any of those platforms and it will pop up. You can also find everything all in one place on my website, ourtravelexp.com. And if you want to see my travel pictures as well as travel pictures from guests on the show, you can check them out on Instagram. The page is called Our Travel Experiences Podcast. And if you want to share your own pictures on the Instagram page or be a guest on the podcast, you can message me via that Instagram page or email me at ourtravelexperiences@outlook.com. I would love to see your pictures and hear about your travel experiences, so please send them my way. And if that isn't enough for you, make sure to check out my weekly YouTube show, From Around the World Fridays. Every Friday, I'm taking 5 to 10 minutes to answer questions from listeners, share some souvenirs that I bought over the years, share my postcards over the years that I've accumulated, or share videos and pictures from one particular city or country that I visited, and so much more. So check it out, guys. You won't be disappointed. And make sure you go subscribe to that as well. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you somewhere around the world soon.